Late this afternoon, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee passed a joint resolution supporting limited use of U.S. military force against Libya for 1 year. Earlier in the day, the administration told the committee the War Powers Act does not apply to U.S. military activity in Libya, that America's role in the mission is too limited in scope to fall under the law. Well, that argument did not sit well with many Republicans who maintain that the War Powers Act does require President Obama to seek congressional approval within 60 days of deploying forces or end military action 30 days later. That 90-day period expired last week.
In this case, President Obama made a deliberate decision not to seek a congressional authorization of his action, either before it commenced or during the last 3 months. This was a fundamental failure of leadership that placed expedience above constitutional responsibility.
We're joined now by Senator John McCAIN of Arizona, who was one of the sponsors of the resolution expressing support for the action in Libya. Senator, thank you for being with us. We just heard your colleague Dick Lugar say the president placed experience above constitutional responsibility in the case of Libya. Is that fair?
I think to a certain degree it's fair, but it is what it is, and it's clear that we are engaged in hostilities, and I wish the president had come much earlier to the Congress, not only for approval but in consultation. But the fact is we cannot afford to have Muammar Gaddafi survive, and we have to make sure that we continue this effort. I would like to have seen, obviously, more U.S. air assets, but I believe Gaddafi is crumbling, and if he stays in power, it's the end of NATO, it's a new terrorist threat that we face, as well as crimes against his own people. So the Foreign Relations Committee passed the resolution that Senator Kerry and I put forward. We hope to debate it and pass it on the floor of the Senate as soon as possible.
And you clearly are expecting that this will advance and pass the Senate, but clearly the larger Republican Party, the presidential candidates in your party, are taking a much more isolationist view, and their tone on the presidential campaign trail is somewhat different from the tone you're striking. Take a listen to some of what we're hearing out there, and I'll ask you to react to it.
When you create a no-fly zone, and when you're in to that extent, that's an expense, that's a risk, and we have to say, if we're going to go that far, is it core to our national security interest?
What possible vital American interest could we have to empower al-Qaeda of North Africa and Libya? The president was absolutely wrong in his decision.
I wouldn't start a war in Libya. I'd quit bombing Yemen, and I'd quit bombing Pakistan.
Now, that was John Huntsman, Michelle Bachmann, and Ron Paul. Today, Tim Pawlenty, another Republican contender, said, quote, parts of the Republican Party now seem to be trying to outbid the Democrats in appealing to isolationist sentiments. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I think that there's been a tension in the Republican Party. And one of my responses, among many, about our involvement in Libya is that, you know, after Srebrenica and after Rwanda, we said never again. Gaddafi's forces were at the gates of Benghazi, a city of 700,000 people, and he promised that he would go house to house and kill anybody that he thought opposed him. Now, that's why, one of the reasons why we intervened, not to mention the blood of some 90-some Americans as a result of bombing of 103, and the fact that he has been involved in acts of terror, and if he survived, he certainly would again. So that and other reasons clearly indicate that it is in United States national security interest. And look, I think we could have gone in earlier, we could have gone in harder, we could have made sure that he was out of power earlier.
What do you attribute it to? Do you think it's pandering to political base?
I think that there's an isolationist wing of our party. I understand the war weariness of the American people are incredibly war weary. I understand that the economic issues are very important, you know, the expenditure of tax dollars. And by the way, the Transition National Council of Libya have said they will reimburse us for our expenses incurred in this assisting them. But so I understand that there's a segment of America, a big segment, that says, look, stay out of everything. I understand that. But as Secretary Gates said, if you want to retreat to Fortress America, then you're going to have to pay a very heavy price because they'll follow us home.
We've been talking about Libya, but I'm sure you've heard the late news today out of Afghanistan that in Kabul there's an attack on the Intercontinental Hotel. Do you think the administration is doing the right thing by scaling back U.S. troops there in Afghanistan?
I think it increases the risk dramatically. I hope that I am wrong. I hope that everything will work out all right. But I think it's important to recognize that there was no recommendation by any military commander to take this action, just as there was no recommendation in 2009 to declare that there would be troops beginning to leave in 2011.
Turning to domestic politics, today Sarah Palin is taking a trip to Iowa, and it generated a lot of buzz about her potential presidential ambitions. Her daughter, Bristol Palin, said that her mom has definitely made a decision. She just hasn't told us. So I wonder, what do you think it's going to be, and has she sought your advice?
She has not sought my advice on this issue. I think if she runs, she will be a very formidable candidate. As you know, I'm staying out of the primaries. I think it's only appropriate for me to do so, and I think she would add a great deal to the competition.
Do you think she'll run?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
In your view, do you think she's just playing around with the media and the political world?
Never. Would any politician ever do such a thing? Any politician you and I know ever do such a thing?
That's unheard of. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Tea Party Express Chairwoman Amy Kramer, talking about another candidate in the field, Michelle Bachmann, predicted that Michelle Bachmann will be Palinized in this campaign, suggesting that the media will tear her apart. Do you share that concern? Do you think that's a fair assessment of what the media does to women in these races?
You know, I don't know, and I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm still just saddened by the attacks that have been made on Sarah Palin and her family, and you know, it's been like nothing I've ever seen, so I can understand why Michelle Bachmann would think that that could also happen to her, but it is what it is, and we're all big men and women, and we should be prepared to take what comes.
All right. Senator McCain, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me on.